Welcome, viewers. Today we reveal the dark secrets hidden behind an ancient king's glorious crown. He was praised as a man after God's own heart, a righteous ruler who brought a golden age to his people. Yet, blinded by absolute power, this king committed the most shocking betrayal of his entire reign. Lust drove him to steal a soldier's wife and coldly order a tragic battlefield demise to hide his sin. How does a fallen hero face divine justice? Let us dissect the shattered mind of King David today. It was the season of spring, a time when ancient monarchs typically led their mighty armies into war. However, powerful King David chose to remain within the safe, fortified walls of Jerusalem. The royal palace offered him unmatched luxury, while his loyal men fought fiercely on the muddy front. One fateful evening, the restless king wandered upon the high stone terrace of his magnificent home. From that elevated vantage point, his wandering eyes caught sight of a breathtakingly beautiful woman. Bathing quietly in a courtyard below, she was completely unaware of the monarch's dark, lingering gaze. Her name was Bathsheba, the faithful wife of Uriah the Hittite, one of David's devoted soldiers. Absolute power often breeds a dangerous illusion of untouchable, dark arrogance. David allowed toxic lust to completely override his moral compass and deeply rooted faith. He used his supreme authority to summon the young woman, deliberately ignoring the laws. This moment of weakness quickly escalated into a catastrophic scandal of epic scale. Soon after, the king received a terrifying message that Bathsheba was carrying his child. Panic began to grip the previously fearless warrior as the heavy weight of his sin arose. To hide his terrible transgression, David desperately recalled Uriah from the final front line. He hoped the soldier would sleep with his wife, creating a perfect cover for the king's dirty secret. But Uriah was a man of strict honor, refusing to enjoy home comforts while his brothers fought. He slept at the palace door, unknowingly destroying the king's carefully constructed web of lies. Frustrated and trapped, David's mind descended into a state of ruthless and cold calculation. He wrote a formal letter to his military commander, sealing it with glowing red royal wax. The parchment contained a secret death sentence, effectively ordering the tragic end of Uriah. Shockingly, the powerful king forced the loyal soldier to carry his own fatal warrant to the front. The commander followed the grim instructions, placing Uriah at the very front of the fierce fight. As the brutal battle raged, the supporting troops suddenly pulled back, leaving the brave man totally alone. Uriah fell under enemy swords, betrayed by the sovereign he had sworn to fiercely protect. When news of the tragic battlefield casualty reached the palace, David feigned a mask of indifference. He quickly married the grieving widow, burying his massive crime under the guise of noble protection. The kingdom celebrated their perfect ruler, completely blind to the rot festering within his soul. But a crown made of gold can never truly silence the deafening roar of a guilty, haunted conscience. According to historical texts, the displeased heavens watched this horrific abuse of earthly power. For nearly an entire year, the monarch successfully hid his crimson tracks from the eyes of mortal men. Throughout those long, agonizing months, David lived a heavily burdened life of absolute hypocrisy. He sat upon his majestic throne, confidently passing righteous judgments on the crimes of his people. Yet in the suffocating silence of his bedchamber, the heavy shadows seemed to fiercely condemn him. Every drop of spilled blood stained his golden scepter, quietly eroding his unshakable spirit. The psychological torture of unconfessed guilt slowly turned his majestic palace into a prison. His health reportedly deteriorated as his vital strength dried up in the scorching summer heat. He tried to maintain his glorious facade, masking his inner turmoil with arrogant authority. But divine justice rarely sleeps forever, and the illusion of safety was destined to shatter now. One day, the heavy wooden doors of the throne room swung open, revealing the stern and wise prophet Nathan. Dressed in a very rough camel hair cloak, the holy man stood in stark contrast to the surrounding luxury. He approached the powerful king not with a sword, but with a deeply piercing, allegorical story. Nathan spoke of a wealthy man who owned massive, sprawling flocks of sheep and cattle across the entire land. He also spoke of a desperately poor man whose only possession was a single, beloved lamb. The poor man cherished this tiny lamb like a daughter, sharing his meager food and holding it very close. But when a hungry traveler arrived, the rich man selfishly refused to sacrifice one from his own flock. Instead, he violently stole the poor man's precious lamb, preparing it to feed his unexpected visitor. Upon hearing this tale, King David's face flushed with extreme righteous anger at the wealthy man's awful greed. He slammed his fist down, declaring that the cruel thief absolutely deserved a harsh, immediate death. In that precise moment of blind self-righteousness, the prophet's fiery eyes locked onto the angry king. With unflinching courage, Nathan raised a trembling finger and delivered a devastating, historic blow.
You are the man!
The prophet's thundering voice echoed through the massive stone pillars of the grand royal hall. Those 4 simple words violently tore away the intricate web of lies David had spent months weaving. The royal court stood paralyzed in stunned silence, witnessing the unthinkable exposure of their king. Suddenly, the majestic throne felt incredibly cold as the crushing weight of reality slammed into him. The prophet relentlessly laid out the gruesome details of Uriah's demise and the theft of his wife. Nathan declared that the sacred sword of strict divine judgment would never depart from David's fractured royal house. In the ancient world, monarchs routinely silenced anyone who dared to challenge absolute authority. He could have easily ordered his armed guards to immediately silence the bold prophet once and for all. If you held absolute power and were publicly exposed, would you simply crush the messenger to survive? This was the ultimate test of his character, the defining crossroads of his legendary historical reign. But unlike tyrannical dictators, the chosen king did not reach for his sword to defend his fragile ego. His suffocating arrogance evaporated, leaving behind a devastated mortal man. David retreated into the darkest corners of his chambers, collapsing onto the cold marble floor. He fiercely tore off his luxurious crimson robes, stripping away the hollow symbols of earthly power. The heavy golden crown, once a proud mark of divine favor, was carelessly cast aside into the shadows. Dressed only in a rough linen tunic, the great conqueror prostrated himself in absolute ruin. Here, in the darkest depths of his despair, he composed the legendary poetry known as Psalm 51. This historic text remains the most profound study of a deeply guilty conscience ever written. He did not offer pathetic excuses, nor did he blame the intense pressures of his royal duties. Instead, his tear-stained face pressed against the cold stone as he begged for supernatural, cleansing mercy. He finally acknowledged the horrifying truth that his sophisticated cover-up assaulted heaven. "Against you, and you alone, have I sinned," he cried out, realizing the ultimate victim of his dark crimes. He understood that abusing his people was a direct rebellion against the Supreme Creator. The king pleaded to be thoroughly washed from his deep iniquity and purified from his foul sin. He described his bones as being fiercely crushed, a physical symbol of his severe mental anguish. David recognized that no amount of expensive sacrifices could purchase a clean, innocent slate. His soul was dangerously polluted, requiring a fundamental recreation of his morals. "Create in me a pure heart," he desperately whispered into the echoing void of his royal bedroom. He was terrified of being permanently cast away from divine presence, losing his spiritual anchor. The mighty warrior who once fearlessly defeated giants now trembled at his own reflection.
Create in me a clean heart.
This profound moment of raw vulnerability forever separated him from typical despots. Does true greatness lie in never making a mistake, or in having immense courage to face your worst sins? His bitter tears washed over the cold floor, slowly dissolving the hardened crust of his prolonged hypocrisy. He begged to be cleansed with hyssop, an ancient ritual plant used to purify the most severe infections. The pain of genuine repentance felt like a sharp surgeon's knife, cutting away the deep spiritual rot. David knew he deserved immediate death under the strict ancient laws he had sworn to fiercely uphold. Adultery and historic treason carried the absolute penalty of public stoning in Israel. Yet his complete surrender activated a different mechanism of justice, built on profound mercy. He offered the only acceptable tribute left to a ruined monarch, a thoroughly shattered heart. His brutal self-examination laid bare the terrifying capacity for evil within a soul. The dark room echoed with his desperate pleas as he fought hard to reclaim the joy of his lost salvation. Through this agonizing process, the broken king slowly began to rebuild his destroyed foundation of faith. He discovered a revolutionary truth that would loudly echo through the vast halls of history. The supreme deity does not demand flawless perfection, nor does he despise a deeply sorrowful spirit. A truly shattered heart is the acceptable sacrifice, where true and lasting redemption finally blooms. The dark and heavy atmosphere in the ancient stone chamber slowly began to lift as the dawn approached. He was no longer the arrogant king who stole another man's wife from the high and stately terrace. Instead, he emerged as a deeply changed and humble survivor, molded by profound divine discipline. His painful confession finally proved that absolute earthly power could not conquer supreme moral law. The brutal consequences of his very dark actions would continue to haunt his royal family. As Nathan warned, the fatal sword never truly departed from David's highly fractured royal house. Yet despite the lingering pain of his sins, he kept his connection to the supreme living creator. Through his sincere tears, the ancient monarch became a beacon of bright hope for fallen humanity. His very raw vulnerability taught future generations the heavy cost of true redemption. He demonstrated that no one is entirely immune to the subtle, poisonous whispers of lust. But he also showed that ultimate forgiveness is available for those who bravely confess. The story of David and Bathsheba remains a chilling warning to all who hold massive power. Even the greatest minds can quickly become horribly distorted by unchallenged authority. Yet, in the desolate ruins of his morality, he found the profound courage to again rebuild. The gentle, pale morning light slowly crept across the cold marble, touching his exhausted and pale face. His tired, bloodshot eyes stared into the glowing beam, searching for a blessed sign of heavenly peace. The deafening silence of the royal palace felt different now, no longer heavy with dark lies. The Supreme Creator does not abandon those who genuinely shatter their deep pride and sorrow. The proud ancient king had finally surrendered his ego to a higher moral authority. His profound repentance wiped away the blinding fog of his massive political arrogance. The story highlights the constant, delicate struggle between human desires and strict divine law. From the very bottom of the darkest pit, a broken human spirit can still rise up toward grace. We must remember that even the most celebrated leaders carry deeply flawed human hearts. The tragic death of the loyal soldier Uriah became a permanent scar on David's grand reign. But from this devastation, a truly powerful message of deep spiritual healing was born. From the very darkest valley of human failure, the soul can somehow stretch out and touch the bright stars. What mysterious message is the vast universe broadcasting through the quiet night sky above? His true confession changed history, proving even kings must bow down to supreme divine justice. Was his sorrow truly genuine, or just the desperate fear of a broken man? Tell us below. If you enjoyed this historical analysis, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more.